Beneath the streets of Tokyo, an ancient art gallery hides a terrifying secret. They say there's a sculpture that can reveal the deepest, darkest truths of anyone who gazes upon it. Truths so horrifying they've driven dozens of visitors to abandon their normal lives, consumed by an emptiness no therapy can cure. The only thing more frightening than hearing these truths is the uncontrollable urge to return for more. Some truths are like parasites. Once heard, they eat your mind from the inside out. Nakamura Kenji was a respected art critic in Tokyo, notorious for his razor-sharp tongue and merciless reviews. After decades of shredding the reputations of promising artists, his nightmares began to intensify. Every night he dreamed of a stone face whispering things that left him drenched in cold sweat. One rainy autumn afternoon, he received an anonymous invitation to an underground exhibit called Reflections of the Soul. Printed on traditional washi paper stained with what looked like rust, it listed only an address and a time: midnight. Professional curiosity trumped caution. Kenji descended the narrow stairs of the abandoned Kayabacho subway station. The air grew thick with the smell of mold and ancient incense with each step. At the end of a dark corridor, a single rusted iron door creaked under the weight of time. Inside the gallery, oil lamps cast dancing shadows on peeling walls. 10, maybe 15 others wandered the space like ghosts, their glassy eyes fixed on the displayed works. No one spoke. Only the occasional sound of a ragged breath broke the oppressive silence. "Welcome, Nakamura-san," a voice whispered behind him. An elderly woman, her wrinkles so deep they seemed chiseled, smiled with yellowed teeth. "We've been expecting you. The centerpiece awaits your critique." In the center of the room, partially draped in faded red velvet, stood a black marble sculpture. It depicted an androgynous face with half-closed eyes and slightly parted lips, as if about to speak. A tarnished brass plaque identified it. "The Whispering Truth, Unknown Artist, Heian Period." "Impossible," Kenji muttered. "The technique is too advanced for that era." "Please, step closer," the old woman urged. "It only speaks to those who get near enough to listen." Against his better judgment, Kenji leaned toward the sculpture. The marble seemed to swallow the surrounding light, creating a void of darkness. When his face was mere inches from the cold stone, a wisp of air escaped the carved lips. "I know what you did to young Takahashi," the statue whispered in a voice like grinding stones. "I know why your wife truly left. I know about the reviews you wrote for money, destroying artists who threatened your patrons' interests." Kenji staggered back as if slapped. It was impossible. No one knew about Takahashi, the young artist who hanged himself after Kenji's scathing review. A review written not out of artistic honesty, but out of jealousy for the boy's youth and talent. "Come back tomorrow," the stone's whisper continued, "and I'll tell you what your colleagues really think of you. Return the night after, and I'll reveal the future that awaits you." Kenji fled the gallery, stumbling up the stairs and emerging onto the rain-soaked, empty street. He swore he'd never return, swore it was just a cheap trick, a trap for gullible art critics. The next day, he tried to work on his weekly column, but the words wouldn't come. His fingers trembled over the keyboard, typing and deleting the same phrase obsessively. "The truth is relative, the truth is relative, the truth is relative." When night fell, he was back at the abandoned station, descending the worn steps with hesitant but determined strides. The old woman waited at the door, smiling as if she'd never left. "Many return," she said. "Truth is a stronger addiction than any drug." This time the gallery held more people. A man in an expensive suit sobbed silently in a corner. A young woman clawed at her arm until it bled, muttering, "It can't be true," over and over. The sculpture seemed larger now, sharper. Its marble eyes seemed to follow Kenji as he approached. When he got close enough, the stone lips moved ever so slightly. "Your colleagues celebrate your failures," the statue whispered. "Your editor keeps a file of your critical missteps to use against you when the time comes. Your protege plans to surpass you and make you irrelevant." Kenji's blood ran cold. The statue recounted specific conversations, exchanged emails, secret meetings, things no one could possibly know. How do you know all this?" he stammered. "I know nothing, Nakamura-san," the sculpture replied. "I merely give shape to the truths you already carry deep inside but refuse to admit. Come back tomorrow, and I'll show you your future." By the third night, Kenji could no longer tell reality from nightmare. He hadn't slept, eaten, or drunk anything but strong coffee and cheap sake. His hands shook uncontrollably as he descended to the gallery. The place seemed to have grown. Corridors that hadn't existed before snaked into the darkness. Paintings on the walls depicted faces twisted in expressions of horror and revelation. In every room, people in various states of despair. Some wept, others laughed hysterically, some stared blankly into nothingness. The sculpture now stood in a room of its own. The black marble glistened with an inexplicable dampness, as if the stone were sweating. The face's features had grown more defined, more familiar. "This is madness," Kenji said, suddenly realizing the sculpture's face now resembled his own. "Not madness, clarity," the statue whispered, its voice now perfectly clear, as if speaking directly into his mind. "Are you ready for your future, Nakamura-san?" Before he could answer, the room darkened. On the sculpture's surface, like a movie screen, images began to form. Kenji saw himself aged, alone in a tiny apartment, surrounded by yellowed clippings of his old reviews. He saw years pass, his name forgotten, his legacy erased by a new generation that deemed him irrelevant and cruel. "No," he protested weakly. "I can change this. I can write differently, be different." "Can you?" the sculpture asked, its voice now eerily like young Takahashi's. "Or is that just another lie you tell yourself? You're already forgotten, Nakamura." "Look around," Kenji glanced up and realized he was alone in the gallery. The other people had vanished, along with the other artworks. The old woman was nowhere to be seen. Only he and the sculpture remained. When he looked back at the statue, its face was unmistakably his, frozen in an expression of horror and realization. What are you?" he asked, his voice reduced to a trembling thread. "I am what has always lived in the depths of the human mind," the sculpture replied, its stone lips moving against all laws of physics. "The truth you all run from. Some call me conscience, others divine judgment. I am the mirror that does not lie." Kenji felt something trickle down his face. He thought it was tears, but when he touched his cheek, his fingers came back stained with a dark, viscous liquid, like ink. "What's happening to me?" he moaned. "Becoming art is painful," the sculpture explained. "But it's the only path to the immortality you've always craved. To truly judge art, you must become part of it." Kenji tried to back away, but his feet felt fused to the floor. He looked down in horror to see his legs had turned to black marble up to his knees. "Help!" he screamed, but his voice made no sound. "Don't fight," the sculpture whispered, now with multiple voices, men, women, children, all speaking in unison. "Every critic eventually becomes part of the art history they tried to define." The transformation crept up his body. The cold marble spread like an infection, turning flesh and bone to hard, frigid stone. Kenji tried to scream again, but his lungs had already solidified. His last conscious thought was the realization that the gallery's true purpose was to serve as a hive, where each new victim became another piece in the exhibit, another stone, mouth to whisper unbearable truths to future visitors. A week later, a new art critic received an anonymous invitation on rust-stained washi paper. In the underground gallery, among countless other sculptures with terrified expressions, there was a new addition. Nakamura Kenji's face, eternally carved in black marble, his lips slightly parted, as if about to share a terrible secret, and so the cycle continued, for the truth always finds new ears to torment, new minds to infest, and new bodies to transform into vessels of its eternal horror. They say, if you wander the abandoned Kayabacho station on a rainy night, you can still hear whispers rising from the depths, truths no one wants to hear but that everyone, deep down, fears might be real.